Good day, my name is Teacher Hans, and today we're going to have another grammar lesson in the Interchange Blue Book, Unit 5. So today we're going to talk about modals for necessity and modals for suggestions. But first and foremost, let us decipher the difference between what a modal for necessity is, or what a necessity is, and what a suggestion is. So when we say necessity, we talk about something that must be done, something that we have to do. And when we say suggestions, it could be something that is being said to someone for him to do or for us to do. But today, we will focus on the modals being used whenever we make suggestions or modals we use in necessity. Let us start. So what are modals? Modals are verbs or are helping verbs or auxiliary verbs that express ideas like ability, necessity, and prohibition. Now, there is something very important whenever we use modal, whenever we speak or whenever we write. Many modal verbs have more than one meaning. They are always followed by the simple form of the verb. So what is that? Okay, please look into the whiteboard. And this is how we write or how we use modals in a sentence. Okay, always take note that modal plus the base form of the verb. Okay, the base form of the verb. So what does it mean? Okay, so whenever we use modal, we set aside the subject-verb agreement. We don't add s. Okay, for an example, isn't it that whenever we talk of, in a normal sentence without modals, we say, he loves chocolates. Okay, take note that this is a sentence without a modal, and take note of the verb loves. But when we use modal, we set aside the subject-verb agreement. Also, we set aside the infinitive verb unless the modal being expressed already makes use of to. So what is infinitive? That is to plus a verb like to dance, to cook, to drive, to sing. Okay, so we set aside that as long as there is no to in the modal expressed. Okay, so let us start. So we begin with modals for describing necessity. Okay, so there are some modals that we use whenever we describe necessity. So we have you have to, must, and need to. Actually, all of them can be used interchangeably. There is no big difference when you use must in replacement of have to, or you use need to in replacement of must. There's no difference at all. Now, let's have some examples here. You have to get a passport. You must get a visa for some countries. You need to take money. Okay, and another one here. For some countries, you don't have to get any vaccinations. So we have here 4 modals being used whenever we describe something in necessity: must, need to, have to, and don't have to. But when we talk of giving suggestions, we use another 4 sets of modal, and that is better, ought to, should, and shouldn't. So that is had better or better. This is a contraction. Ought to, should, or shouldn't, or the contraction for should not. So let's have some examples. You'd better talk to your father. You ought to go with someone. You should take warm clothes. You shouldn't go by yourself. So those are the modals being used whenever we talk of, or whenever we give suggestions. Okay, so let's have the uses of the modals. First, let's have to talk about the modals for necessity. Uses: must. We can use must to show that we are certain something is true. When it is so true, it's powerful must. Okay, in general, must expresses personal obligation. We must show our passport at the airport. The students must answer their activities online. The teachers must jot down the records of the quizzes. So that is when we use must. Next is have to. We often use have to say that something is obligatory. In general, have to expresses impersonal obligation. Jan has to wear a tie at work. Okay, why did we use has to instead of have to? Remember that John is alone, singular subject. Children have to go to school. Okay, and need to, we can use need to say something is necessary or unnecessary. You usually need to check in at least 2 hours before a flight leaves. And I don't need to take a raincoat. Okay? Another one, had better. The modal had better. We use had better to give advice about specific situations, not general ones. Example, you'd better tell her everything. You'd better tell your mother that you're not feeling well. Another one, ought to. Sometimes they say ought to is archaic or it's old and it should not be used. But then again, it's necessary that we are aware of the modal ought to. Ought to is used to advise or make recommendations. Also, it expresses assumption or expectation as well as a strong probability. For an example, you ought to stop smoking. That is a recommendation. Next, this stock ought to increase in value. So that is a probability. Again, a model for making suggestions. And another one is should. We often use should when offering advice or opinions. For an example, you should see the new James Bond movie. It's great. And people should worry about global warming. So these are the different models, the different uses of these models. Please take note that we use a different set of models when we talk of necessity, and we use a different sets of models when we talk of suggestions. So that is all. Should you have any questions, please feel free to contact your teachers, and please wait for activities to be posted online. Goodbye and thank you.